I took a bullet for my boyfriend of 10 years. He survived unscathed, and in the heat of the moment, he promised he'd do anything for me. Everyone assumed I would seize the opportunity to demand marriage. After all, I had proposed to him multiple times before, and I was 3 months pregnant with his child. But to everyone's shock, I looked him in the eye and dumped him on the spot. Then I turned my back on him. Simone told him to chase after me, but he just scoffed, his expression dripping with disdain. Why bother? Everyone knows Jacqueline is desperate. She's pathetic. She's carrying my kid. She's just playing hard to get. If I chase her now, I'm just falling for her little game. He didn't know that I had already died once in my past life. My proposal had been successful, but Lila, the young girl he had saved, slashed her wrists and screamed for him, blaming me for her distress. He locked me in our house like an animal. He broke my legs, the legs I used to dance with. On the day I went into labor, he strangled our newborn with his own hands, leaving me to bleed out in agony. Heaven had mercy. I was back. And this time, I was going to give him exactly what he wanted. My thigh burned like it was being branded with a hot iron. A sharp jolt of pain snapped me back to reality. The nurse was gently wrapping gauze around the wound, her voice soft. The antiseptic is going to sting a bit, honey. Just hang in there. Standing nearby, Jax let out a cold, mocking laugh. He was handsome, with that sharp jawline that used to make my heart race. But now his eyes were full of contempt. Oh, now you feel pain? What happened to all that bravery earlier? If you hadn't gotten in the way, I would have caught that dealer. You're useless, Jacqueline. You ruin everything. I looked down at my legs, smooth and unbroken. I stayed silent. In my last life, to avenge Lila's imaginary grievances, Jax had shattered these legs with a baseball bat. It had been so long since I'd seen them whole. The other officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had been there during the raid. 2 hulking drug traffickers, one with a loaded gun. If I hadn't thrown myself in front of Jax, that bullet would have buried itself in his heart, not grazed my leg. Seeing that I wasn't fighting back, Jax's mood darkened. He kicked a metal stool, sending it skittering across the linoleum floor. Enough with the silent treatment, Jacqueline. You stalked me to a crime scene and interfered with police work. Do you have any idea how stupid that was? And now you have the nerve to give me attitude? He paced, agitated. Look, I said I'd grant you a request for saving me, so spit it out. What do you want? He looked like he was seconds away from hitting me. Time is a cruel thief. It stole the passionate, devoted boy I fell in love with and left this violent, bitter stranger in his place. He had forgotten that he once swore to protect me with his life. No, he hadn't forgotten. He had simply found someone else to protect. My gaze drifted to his hand. The silver band we bought together years ago was gone. In its place sat a cheap, hand-woven string ring with a tacky plastic puppy charm. I knew who made that. Lila, the 18-year-old orphan Jax met 6 months ago. The innocent victim. I let out a dry, bitter chuckle. Anything. You'll agree to anything? Jax paused, his eyes flickering to the cheap ring on his hand. A shadow of guilt crossed his face, quickly replaced by annoyance. He gritted his teeth. Yes. A few rookie cops shuffled closer, grinning. They knew our history. 10 years is a lifetime. It's a life debt, boss. Might as well offer yourself in marriage, one joked. The room erupted in laughter. Yeah, Jax. Jacqueline said last year she wanted to be married before 30. Tick-tock. Count me in for the bachelor party. I was about to shut them down when the door burst open. A breathless nurse rushed in. Officer. It's bad. The girl you brought in, she's trying to slash her wrists again. I couldn't count how many times Lila had pulled the suicide card. Just like in my previous life, she knew exactly how to steal the spotlight. Jax's face drained of color. Without a glance at me, he sprinted out. I scoffed, ignored the pain in my leg, and limped after him. On the second floor, by the window, Lila looked frail and tragic, wrapped in Jax's oversized police jacket. Her face was pale, her large eyes swimming with tears. When we left the scene earlier, Jax had carried her to the ambulance like she was made of glass. I remembered now. When the dealer aimed the gun, Lila had stood there in silence. Only after the criminals fled did she collapse into Jax's arms, sobbing and fainting. On cue, upon seeing me in the doorway, Lila's expression shifted minutely before she ramped up the hysterics. "I know Jacqueline took a bullet for you, Jax. You promised her anything. You've been together 10 years. She wants to marry you, so you have to say yes, right?" She held a fruit knife to her slender wrist, pressing just hard enough to dent the skin. "But Jax, I'm an orphan. I'm just a stray dog nobody wants. You gave me a home. You saved me. The thought of losing you. I'd rather die. Put the knife down, Lila. Please. I can explain everything," Jax pleaded, his voice trembling with a tenderness he hadn't shown me in years. It was almost funny. Lila had some kind of dark magic. From the moment he saved her, Jax became obsessed with fathering this homeless girl. He gave her a credit card. He moved her into his apartment, our future apartment, claiming she needed warmth and safety. Whenever she cried, he ran. When I nearly died in a car wreck last year, he screamed at me over the phone for interrupting his time comforting Lila after a nightmare. "If you're hurt, call an ambulance." What the hell am I supposed to do? You're so dramatic. That was the moment my heart began to shatter. Jack saw a helpless 18-year-old in Lila. He conveniently forgot that his 29-year-old fiancée had also grown up in the foster system. He forgot that he was the one who dragged me into this love story. In my last life, jealousy and unwillingness to let go led to my destruction. But this time, he could keep her. I was done. Jax lunged forward and wrestled the knife from Lila's grip. He pulled her into a crushing hug, kissing the top of her head repeatedly. "Don't ever scare me like that again. You hear me?" Lila buried her face in his neck, sobbing theatrically. "But you're going to marry Jacqueline. And I'll be homeless again. Why did you even save me?" I watched from the doorway, fighting the urge to vomit. It was such a clumsy performance, yet Jax bought every second of it. He glared at me over her shoulder, eyes filled with resentment, before turning back to Lila gently. "I promise you, married or not, your place in my heart won't change," he sighed, as if forced to reveal a burdensome truth. "I have no choice, Lila. Jacqueline and I have been together for a decade. Everyone knows she's desperate to marry me. When my dad died, she paid for the police academy. She took care of my mom for years. It's a debt. I have to pay it back." The room went silent. The other officers looked awkward. Before Lila, we had been the precinct's power couple. Now he made me sound like a loan shark collecting dues. I did pay for his academy. I did nurse his sick mother. I did it because I loved him, not because it was a transaction. If I had known he would turn into this, I would have walked away years ago. "You said you'd agree to any request," I said, my voice cutting through the soap opera. "Ready to honor that?" Jack stiffened. He patted Lila and stood up, adjusting his jacket with arrogant pride. "So eager to lock me down, huh? And you have no dignity. Anyway, when do you want to go to the courthouse?" "I want to break up." Jax froze. The arrogance slid off his face, replaced by confusion, then anger. "Excuse me?" I said, "I want to break up. Right now. Today." "Quit the drama, Jacqueline," he snapped. "Everyone knows you've been chasing me for 10 years. You'd crawl over glass to marry into my family. Now I finally say yes, and you're playing hard to get? Don't treat me like an idiot. You're still wearing our ring." He pointed at my hand triumphantly. I calmly slid the silver band off my finger and tossed it into the medical waste bin. Clink. The sound was small, but in the silent room, it sounded like a gavel falling. "I'm not wearing it anymore," I said, my voice eerily steady. "Can we break up now?" He had given me that ring when he was 18, fresh out of high school. He worked 3 jobs to buy it. He had presented it to me with shaking hands. "Jacqueline, I know you don't have family. I'll be your family. I'll protect you with my life. I'll be the best man you'll ever know." I believed him. I wore that cheap silver ring for 10 years. Once I dropped it in the ocean and nearly drowned diving for it. He knew what that ring meant to me. Now it sat among the bloody gauze and used needles. "You think this threatens me?" Jax's face turned red. I'm warning you, Jacqueline. I'm keeping my word to marry you. But if you keep acting like a lunatic, don't expect a warm welcome in my house. I laughed. I actually laughed. Good. Who wants to be in your house anyway? I looked him in the eyes one last time. Jax, this is your notice. We're done. Don't come looking for me. I turned and walked away. Aren't you going to chase her? Someone whispered to Jax. Chase her? Jax sneered loud enough for me to hear. She's a clinger, and she's pregnant with my kid. This is just a game. If I chase her, she wins. Let her cool off. He was right about one thing. I was pregnant, 3 months ago. He had shown up drunk, forcing himself on me, mumbling about how we were going to get married anyway. The next morning, he accused me of drugging him. Shameless. You trapped me? I should have left then, but 10 years of history weighed me down. I wanted a family in my past life. That desire killed me. Lila eventually committed suicide for real, and Jax blamed me. He turned my life into a horror movie. You killed Lila. You don't deserve happiness. I touched my slightly swollen abdomen. I knew what I had to do. The next day I got a text from Jax, passed out on duty near the old industrial park. Come pick me up. It was his usual style, but I knew it wasn't him. Only Lila had access to his phone and would bother mimicking him. Jax had told me a month ago he'd never call me first. His ego was too big. I knew it was a trap, a hangman feast, but I grabbed my keys and went anyway. The location was a derelict factory on the outskirts of the city. As soon as I stepped through the rusted doors, someone kicked the back of my knees. I hit the concrete hard. Crack. Pain exploded up my legs. Laughter echoed in the vast, empty space. I looked up. Lila stood in the center, flanked by 3 rough-looking men. Her innocent mask was gone, replaced by a sneer. Why did you have to follow him, Jacqueline? Why do you have to be so pathetic? Nobody wants you. Don't you have any shame? I stayed silent, kneeling on the dirty floor. Lila strutted over, grabbed a handful of my hair, and yanked my head back. Tell me, she whispered, her breath smelling of peppermint. If you lose this baby, do you think Jax will still marry you? I stared into her eyes and smiled. Why don't you find out? Smack. She slapped me across the face. You think I won't? Jax doesn't love you. He told me. You're just a glorified maid. You're disgusting. This is what you deserve. She shoved me backward. Then she started kicking. She aimed specifically for my stomach. Bitch. Trying to steal my man. Blocking my way. You deserve to die. I curled into a ball, screaming as the blows landed. I felt something warm and wet spread between my legs. My vision began to blur. Lila laughed, breathless and manic. She grabbed a metal pipe from a pile of debris and raised it high. Whoa, stop, one of the thugs yelled. She's bleeding. That's a lot of blood. Lila didn't care. She swung the pipe down, smashing it into my ribs. The pain was blinding. Darkness swallowed me whole. I woke up to the chaos of a hospital corridor. White lights, shouting. We can't operate without a signature. The emergency contact isn't picking up. Check her phone for anyone else. Stay with us, honey. Stay with us. At the precinct, Jax was filling out paperwork. His phone rang. Lila's voice sounded terrified. Jax. Help. Some men are following me. Jax dropped everything and raced home. He found Lila curled up in bed, shivering. I was so scared, she wept, clinging to him. They said they wanted to have fun with me. I ran so fast. Hush, Jax soothed her. I'm here. His phone began to ring, a jarring, persistent sound. He saw my name on the caller ID and frowned. He hit decline. The call cut off with a dull beep. On the other end, someone cursed. Damn it, it went to voicemail again. Try the next number. Hands fumbled with my phone, swiping through contacts. I drifted in and out, the harsh lights above me blurring into a smear. My lower body felt like it was being ripped apart. Every breath dragged fire through my ribs. "Jacqueline, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand." I tried. I wasn't sure if my fingers moved. "BP is dropping. If we wait for consent, we'll lose her," another voice snapped. "She's pregnant and hemorrhaging. We don't have time." Someone cursed again, low and furious. "Fine. She's unresponsive, no reachable contact. Witnesses, sign here. We're going in. Prep the oar." A pen scratched across paper. The world dissolved into shouting, rolling, the squeak of wheels, cold air on my face. Then nothing. When I woke, the world was gray. The ceiling above me was a dull off-white, a faint crack splitting it like a scar. The room smelled of disinfectant and something metallic that clung to the back of my throat. For a long time, I stared at the crack, because looking anywhere else hurt too much. A soft chime sounded by my head. A monitor beeped steadily, indifferent to the fact that my world had already ended once and was apparently trying again. "You're awake." A woman's voice, tired but gentle. I turned my head. A middle-aged doctor in light blue scrubs stood by my bed, dark circles under her eyes, chart in hand. Her gaze flicked over my face, assessing, searching. "Jacqueline Carter, right?" she confirmed. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Yeah." She exhaled, just a little. "I'm Dr. Patel. You've been in and out for a day and a half. How do you feel?" I tried to shift. A bolt of agony shot through my abdomen and ribs. I sucked in a sharp breath. "Like hell," I croaked. "That tracks." She glanced at the monitor, then back at me. "I'm going to be very direct, okay? You've had a significant trauma. You had internal bleeding from abdominal injuries and a partially ruptured uterus. We stabilized you. You're lucky to be alive." The word slid over me, unreal, distant. My hand moved on its own, dragging weakly toward my stomach. Beneath the thin hospital gown, there was a bandage. There was also a hollowness so sharp it was almost a sound. "The baby?" My voice cracked on the last word. For a heartbeat, the room was silent except for the beeping. "I'm sorry," Dr. Patel said quietly. "We couldn't save the pregnancy." Something inside me folded in on itself. I stared at her, waiting for the corresponding wave of shock, hysteria, grief. The script for this moment should have included screaming, sobbing, maybe ripping out my fore. Instead, there was only a strange calm, like hearing about a stranger's tragedy on the news. Of course. In my last life, he strangled that child with his own hands. In this one, the world took the choice away from me before he had the chance. I let my hand drop. "How? How bad is it?" I asked. "My uterus. You'll need time to heal." Dr. Patel's voice stayed level, but not cold. "We had to repair quite a bit. There's scarring and we removed a significant amount of damaged tissue. I won't lie to you, future pregnancies, if they happen, will be high risk. But not impossible." High risk? That used to be my worst nightmare. Now, knowing there was any possibility at all felt like mercy. "Did my emergency contact sign anything?" I forced myself to ask. Her mouth tightened. "We tried calling the number listed 3 times. No answer. Voicemail only. You were deteriorating quickly, so we proceeded under emergency consent. One of the nurses and a tech signed as witnesses. So Jax had declined my call, and when they tried again, he simply didn't pick up. Not even to say no. He just let it ring while he held Lila. Somewhere, in some apartment that used to be my dream, he had been wiping tears from her cheeks while mine soaked into an operating table. My chest ached. Not with heartbreak, not exactly. More like the final, tired ache of a limb that had been broken years ago, set wrong, and was now being reset properly. "This contact," Dr. Patel went on carefully, "is he safe? For you?" The question startled me. I followed her gaze. My arms. Bruises bloomed up and down my forearms, fingerprints stamped in deep purple and yellow. Older faint marks coiled around my wrists like ghostly cuffs. Newer ones, Lila's handiwork and the thugs, mottled my ribs and hips. Jax's name sat in my phone as emergency, heart emoji. The irony burned. No, I said. The word came out calm, flat, absolute. Dr. Patel nodded, as if that confirmed what she already suspected. All right. As of now, the hospital has flagged your file. No visitors unless you approve them by name. If anyone claiming to be your partner or fiancé shows up, you have the right to refuse contact. If you decide later you want to talk to the police about what happened at that factory, we can connect you with social work and legal aid. Police. My lips almost twitched. He is the police, I said. Her brows shot up. The same Jax whose number is in your file? I nodded once. For a brief moment, anger flickered in her eyes. Not the messy, selfish kind, I recognized this one. Professional anger. The kind that came from seeing too much preventable damage. Well, she said. Badge or not, he doesn't get to make your medical decisions. We'll get you set up with a new emergency contact before you're discharged. Someone you choose. Fair? Fair. The word tasted strange. Fair, I echoed. Good. She softened again. We'll be monitoring you closely for the next 48 hours. You might experience cramps, dizziness, emotional swings. There's a grief counselor available, but there's no wrong way to feel right now. Numb is also a feeling, okay? Numb. I could work with numb. When can I leave? I asked. She blinked. Most patients in your condition aren't asking to leave. They're asking for more pain meds. I can handle pain, I said. I already had, twice now. She studied me for a moment, then sighed. We'll talk again tomorrow. Rest for now, Jacqueline. She patted the bedrail and left. The door clicked shut. Silence settled over the room. I turned my head slowly, wincing. Someone had set my phone on the bedside table in a clear plastic bag, along with the silver chain I used to wear, a tiny dancer charm still smeared with dried blood. My emergency call list was still open. Missed call, St. Luke's ER, 3 outgoing, Jax, 2 no answer. My chest rose and fell. In my last life, I had begged him not to go. Please don't go to her, I had sobbed, 9 months pregnant and barely able to walk. I'm scared. The baby. He had pushed me away to get to Lila's window faster. You'll be fine. Stop making everything about you. This time, I had gone to Lila myself. Walked straight into the lion's den and let her teeth close around me. The end result was the same. Only this time, I was still alive. I pulled in a breath, feeling the edges of bandaged ribs. Fine, I whispered to the empty room. You can have him? My hand hovered over my abdomen, then fell to my side. But you'll pay for what you took from me. Not with a screaming confrontation. Not with jealous scenes. I'd tried those before. They had only fed his resentment and her performance. No. This time, I was going to do what Lila always accused me of, what Jack sneered at me for never having. Grow a spine. Walk away. And never look back. Discharge papers, a nurse said 3 days later, dropping a clipboard onto the rolling table in front of me. I was upright now, propped against stacked pillows. Every minor movement still sent flares of pain through my torso, but at least the room had stopped spinning. She pointed to a line near the bottom. We updated your emergency contact to the name you gave us, Simone Torres. You're sure? Yes. My signature looked a little shaky, but it was legible. Simone sat curled up in the visitor's chair, dark curls piled on top of her head, arms wrapped around a giant paper cup of coffee. She had been there when I first woke up fully lucid, eyes red, mascara smudged. You scared the hell out of me, she muttered now. Next time you want to almost die, can you send me a calendar invite first? Sorry, I said. She glared at me weakly, then exhaled. At least you're making jokes. That's something. The nurse tore off one copy of the form and tucked it into my thin folder. A social worker will be in with some info about restraining orders, domestic violence hotlines, that kind of thing. You mentioned issues with your ex. The word slid over me like warm water. Yes, I said. But we won't need the domestic violence hotline. The nurse hesitated. Her gaze dipped to the fading bruises on my arms and the paperwork notation about pregnancy loss due to assault. You might, she said softly. And that's okay. Those services are there for you if you change your mind. She left. Silence. Simone shifted in her chair. You're really not going to file a report? She asked. About Lila? About those guys? I stared at my hands. On paper, it looked simple. 3 men. 1 knife. A derelict factory. A beaten, pregnant woman. In reality, it was Lila's crocodile tears and big eyes, Jax's badge and his habit of seeing whatever he wanted to see. I need proof, I said. If I go in there now, bleeding and hysterical, who are they going to believe? The suicidal stray dog he adopted? Or the clingy girlfriend who won't let go? Simone's jaw clenched. You almost died, Jack. I know. You lost the baby. I know that too. And Jax. Her hands curled into fists around the coffee cup. He didn't even answer the phone. They told me. The nurses. They tried 3 times. That had been the final straw for Simone. She'd texted him herself when she first got here. He'd seen the messages and left them on read. He'd only called back hours later, with an offhand, is it urgent? I'm in the middle of something with Lila. Simone had hung up on him. He made his choice, I said simply. So I'm making mine. She eyed me warily. Which is? I swung my legs slowly over the side of the bed, biting down on a whimper as my abdomen protested. Simone jumped up, ready to help, but I shook my head. I'm done begging, I said. Done explaining. Done waiting for him to remember who was there for him before the sob story stray dog showed up. I reached for the paper bag that held my clothes. The bullet-torn jeans were gone, cut off in the ER. The top was shredded and stained. Someone had tucked in a pair of donated sweatpants and a plain t-shirt instead. And instead of going to internal affairs or something? Simone pressed. Oh, I'll get there, I said. But on my terms. With evidence. Not just bruises he can frame as falling down the stairs while emotionally unstable. The words tasted bitterly familiar. In my last life, when a neighbor had called the cops after hearing me scream, Jax had met his colleagues at the door with a smile. She's fine. She gets dramatic when she's pregnant. Must have slipped in the shower. Look, no harm done. They had apologized to him for the inconvenience. I know how this precinct works, I said. I know which officers owe him favors. I know which ones owe me favors. I also know where he's sloppy when it comes to evidence. Simone blinked. You think you can out-police a cop? A humorless smile tugged at my lips. I've basically been his unpaid assistant for 10 years. Who do you think organized his case files while he played guardian angel to Lila? Besides, this isn't just about him. That factory? Those men? If we can tie Lila to them even once, the whole innocent orphan act cracks. Simone slowly set the coffee down. Okay. So what do you need? First? I said. I need to go home. Her expression tightened. You mean your apartment, where half his stuff still is? No. I shook my head. That place was always his, even when my name was on the lease. I mean my home. She frowned. You don't have. I met her eyes. I do. Starting today. My home turned out to be a shoebox studio above a laundromat 3 bus rides away from the precinct. It smelled faintly of detergent and old wood. The floor creaked. The single window looked out over a narrow alleyway where stray cats screamed at each other at 2 in the morning. It was perfect. It's tiny, Simone said, hands on her hips, trying to pretend she wasn't slightly horrified. It's mine, I said. The landlord, an older woman with salt and pepper hair and a no-nonsense stare, had taken one look at my hospital discharge bracelet and the bruise peeking out from under my collar, then silently knocked a chunk off the deposit. You pay on time, you stay, she'd said. You bring loud trouble, you go. She jabbed a thumb at Jax's name on my old mail, no more. Understand? I understand, I'd said. Now, standing in the middle of the empty room, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness. Not yet. Possibility. Simone dragged the one donated chair to the corner and collapsed into it. What about your stuff? She asked. Your clothes, your photos, your... everything? They can have it, I said. She stared. You spent years building that place with him. You painted those walls. You picked that couch. And he sat on that couch and texted Lila while I cooked him dinner, I reminded her. He had sex with me in that bed, then left to hold her while she had a panic attack. The only things I want from that apartment are my documents and my dance shoes. At the word dance, something in my chest twinged. My legs. The ones he had shattered in the last life. I looked down at them now, encased in soft sweatpants. There were still ugly bruises from the kicks. The stitches near my hip pulled when I moved too fast. But when I flexed my toes, they moved. They were still mine. I'll swing by while he's on shift, Simone offered. Grab your passport, your certificates, whatever you need. I'll ship anything else you remember later. Let him come home to a black hole where you used to be. I exhaled. Thank you. She softened. You're my friend. You're allowed to need help, you know. In my past life, I hadn't had Simone. I cut myself off from everyone to minimize noise in my relationship. Exactly the way Jax liked it. This time, I let her hug me without flinching, even though it made my ribs complain. When she left, promising to bring food and a second-hand kettle, I locked the door behind her and leaned my forehead against it. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere in the distance. For the first time in a decade, it didn't automatically make me think of Jax. I turned, taking in the apartment. One mattress on the floor. A chipped nightstand. A tiny kitchenette. No framed photos of us. No police academy graduation portrait. No Lila's stray puppy keychain tossed artfully on the counter. Just me. I dug my phone out of my pocket and sank slowly down onto the mattress. There were 12 unread messages from Jax. The first few were almost bored. Where are you? The hospital called the precinct. Something about surgery. You could have told me. Then, as the hours went by. Answer me. You're being ridiculous. Simone says you moved out. Is this another stunt? Then, as the hospital officially changed my emergency contact and the nurses stopped giving out updates to him. So that's it? You shut me out? After everything I've done for you? You lost the baby because you ran off alone, you know that? If you hadn't gone to that part of town. I stopped reading. I opened the message thread, scrolled to the top, and started saving every text, every voicemail, to a cloud folder with a new password. Evidence, not communication. Then I blocked his number. A warning popped up. This contact will no longer be able to call or text you. My thumb hovered for half a second. Then I hit confirm. The silence that followed was almost physical, like a heavy blanket settling over my shoulders. One more chain snapped. 3 weeks later, I was limping less and thinking more. Grief came in strange flashes. Sometimes at night, when the alley cats finally exhausted themselves and the laundromat below went quiet, I would press a hand to my flat stomach and feel an ache so deep it was almost disbelief. There had been a tiny heartbeat there once. Now there wasn't. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I stared at the wall and felt nothing. Both, I decided, were allowed. During the day, I made lists. Money I had given Jax over the years. Loan payments I had taken on. Bills that were still in my name, quietly accruing interest for a future I no longer wanted. I went to the bank and closed the joint savings account that had always technically been mine alone. I redirected automatic transfers from my paycheck to a new account at a different branch. I filed change of address forms. I signed up for gig work I could do sitting down, online transcription, data entry, anything that didn't require me to be on my feet for hours. And, when my doctor finally cleared me for light activity, I went to see an old friend I'd abandoned the moment I met Jax. The studio. It was a tiny place tucked above a used bookstore, mirrors cracked in the corners, sound system older than I was. I had taught kids ballet here for 2 years before quitting to support Jax through the academy. The owner, Mrs. Lee, was still there. Her hair was whiter, her shoulders a little more stooped, but her eyes were the same, sharp, assessing kind. "Jack?" she said when I limped in, clutching the banister. "You look like someone ran you over with a truck." "Factory," I corrected weakly. "Metal pipe." "Close enough." Her gaze flicked to the faint scar peeking above my waistband, then to the careful way I held myself. She didn't ask questions. Instead, she walked over and took my hands. "You came back," she said. "If you still have room for a washed-up 29-year-old who can't do a full grand jeté yet," I answered. The corner of her mouth lifted. "Can you sit on a chair and count to 8? "Yes." "Can you tell a 6-year-old to point her toes without crying?" "I think so." "Then I have room." I swallowed, my throat suddenly tight. "Mrs. Lee, She squeezed my hands. "Whatever sent you away, and whatever brought you back, doesn't matter in this room. Leave it at the door. In here, you're just Jacqueline. The girl who used to dance like flying." My eyes burned. In my last life, Jax had destroyed my body and then told me dance was childish anyway. This time, I planned to rebuild from the ground up, even if it meant starting in a chair with a whistle and a line of snot-nosed toddlers. As I left the studio after scheduling part-time classes, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize flashed on the screen. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Is this Jacqueline Carter?" A male voice asked. Crisp, unfamiliar, professional. "Yes. This is Detective Marcus Hall from Internal Affairs." My heart stilled. "I was hoping we could talk," he continued. "Off the record. About Officer Jax Nolan, a certain 18-year-old named Lila Shaw. And a derelict factory on the outskirts of the city." The world narrowed to the sound of my breathing and the faint hum of the street below. "How did you get my number?" I managed. "A nurse at St. Luke's filed an anonymous concern," he said. "Said a woman came in with pregnancy loss and multiple contusions, listed an officer as her emergency contact, and he never showed. There was also mention of you paying for his academy, covering his mother's medical bills, and him referring to you as a debt." I closed my eyes briefly. "Dr. Patel?" "Of course." "I'm not calling as your enemy, Miss Carter," Detective Hall said. "From what I can see, you might be the missing piece in a case we've been building for a while. Officer Nolan's judgment has been compromised recently. Unexplained leaks, botched raids, evidence going missing. And this girl, Lila, keeps popping up in the background like a bad penny." Images flashed through my mind. Lila's plastic puppy ring. Her crocodile tears. The men at the factory, laughing as they watched her kick me. "I'm listening," I said. "Good." Papers rustled on his end. "If you're willing, I'd like you to come in and give a statement." Not at his precinct. "Here. I can arrange transportation, and we can make sure your name is kept off any surface reports for now." Fear stirred, sharp and instinctive. Jax's fury if he found out. Lila's vindictiveness. But under the fear, something else moved. Vindication. In my last life, I had died in a pool of my own blood while he called me dramatic. This time, I had the chance to help dismantle the pedestal he'd built for himself and the stage he'd gifted Lila. "How soon?" I asked. There was a pause. "Sooner is better," Detective Hall admitted. "We're already pulling his case files. If there's anything you can tell us about his patterns, his weak points, his blind spots, it could make a real difference. Not just for you." I thought of the next girl he might save. The next stray dog he might bring home and leash with guilt and grand gestures. I straightened, feeling the pull of stitches, the throb of old bruises. "I'll come," I said. "But on one condition." "Name it." "I don't want protection as Officer Nolan's girlfriend," I said. "I want to be treated like what I am." "And what's that?" he asked. I looked at my reflection in the studio window. Pale, thinner than before, eyes shadowed, and yet there was a sharpness there that hadn't existed 10 years ago. "A witness," I said. "And a victim. But not his." There was a pause, then a quiet, "Understood." We set a time. As I hung up, Simone's earlier words echoed in my mind. "You think you can out-police a cop?" "No. I was going to let the system he trusted so blindly turn around and look him in the eye. And while he scrambled, while Lila scrambled, while their carefully curated tragedy unraveled under the weight of receipts, messages, and witnesses they thought didn't matter, I would be here. In my tiny apartment above a laundromat. In a dance studio that smelled like rosin and dreams. In a life that, for the first time in 2 timelines, belonged to me. I adjusted my grip on the railing and began the slow, careful descent down the stairs. This time, if anyone was going to bleed for Jax's sins, it wouldn't be me.